Hello and welcome to the Heresy Lodge. I am your host, Dylan Cooper, the Constant Coast over here.
Gavin Franklin.
And guys, apologies for not being here last week. Shit happens. We've also just I mean, let's be real, we've been sucking ass with our
Yeah,
schedules.
it's been pretty consistently every other week, unless someone's getting married and has a bunch of bachelor parties, and then it's even less.
Yeah, I feel bad, but at the same time, we don't get paid to do this.
It's very true. It's not like, we're
So
not Logan Paul, we're not.
yeah, if we were making money and I would care a lot more. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the podcast. This is fun for us. It's time for us to hang out and drink beer.
I engaged in the community last week
You
multiple times.
did. Yeah,
I think it's great.
the book club's great. I'm gonna start reading Project Hail Mary
I
for this
have
month.
that.
Me
I
too.
bought it at some point.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be the book club book of the month. So if anyone's interested, join the Discord. You can find that pinned to our Twitter at Heresy Lodge. Email us at theheresylodge@gmail.com. Check us out on YouTube at the Heresy Lodge. We have merch as well. Check it out. Other than the book club, there's also a movie night on the Discord. Check that out too. Raptor hosts that every Saturday. It's a cool time.
Can I ask, like, how the hell? How the hell do you read two books in a month? That is crazy, dude. I mean,
One,
we used to do that, I guess.
yeah, I mean, one of them's audio. That's how. Because I'm, it forces me to run consistently. So I just run in and listen. And, I don't like music. Like, it fucks me up when I'm running. And
Really.
I'm like, well, I'll just space out to a book. And then I just read a normal book.
I get it. Do you like to you run in the cold, don't you?
No, I fucking hate running in the cold. I get
Sounds miserable.
This is about to get some TMI for everyone. I got super sensitive nips. All right, these motherfuckers, as soon as they get hard and start rubbing on a shirt, they are just instantly chafed. And it's like the Office episode with the bleeding nipples. Like, that's me.
I never got the sensitive nips. I ran with you for years, and there were people on the team that would have to wear the band-aids. And I was like, that's crazy.
I just went
Thought that was
shirtless. I was
crazy.
just it's like 7 degrees. I probably won't it probably won't fall off, right? Like, it's fine.
It's a crazy time.
I'd rather be really fucking cold than my nipples hurt, man. It's so painful. It just burns. And then you
Do
get in the
you wear
shower
the
and it burns
band-aids
more.
during 5Ks now?
No. There's a distance I think that I can make it. So far,
Ooh.
5K is okay. I think 5 miles is right on the teeter, is what I'm
Your,
learning.
your nips are just gone at that point.
Yeah, so it'll be really interesting next year when I'm running half marathons.
See how it goes.
Yeah. Before we get into our book though, which is Mistborn, by the way, we are still on Mistborn.
This is
Book
be the
one.
last
Final
Mistborn.
Empire. Yeah, we're gonna be done with the Final Empire after this one. Then we'll be on Well of Ascension. But Gavin, what are you drinking?
I don't know. Um,
Dude, I just poured a bunch of booze in here and it's just fine.
that's pretty much what it is. It's like whiskey and vermouth and triple sec and some mint simple syrup and a little bit of bitters. Looks like this. Oh, red,
How's it
sweet
taste?
vermouth. It's good.
Yeah, interesting combos.
I got an all-day IPA for backup here.
All day IPA.
How about you?
Last week, which is also one of the reasons we couldn't record last week, my wife was in Ohio for work, and while she was there, she went to a brewery and brought me back probably my last of the year, an Oktoberfest from Sonder Brewing.
I've been to Sonder.
Really?
Yeah, is that in it's
In
in
Ohio?
Columbus?
I don't know. Mason.
Did I go to Mason? Oh yeah.
Sonder,
I've been to
Mason,
Mason.
Ohio.
Yes, that's where my wife had a lot of her soccer tournaments. So
Hmm,
yeah, I've been to Sonder. Pretty
cool.
cool.
Yeah, the beer's all right. Apparently, they have an Oktoberfest 5K because it's all over this thing. Register today. I'm assuming it's too late for that.
It's probably too
All
late.
day. Up here we go. German beer, food, and music all day. 9:28. So yeah, it's past that date.
Yeah, so this place, they have a beer wall, I'm pretty sure. Isn't it? It's just I feel like so so bad about myself when like I'm like, "Oh yeah, I've been to that brewery."
I mean, that should be like a proud moment for you. Like, oh
I
yeah.
guess so at some point.
There's nothing better than be like, oh, that random brewery out of state. Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, I've definitely been here. I'm looking it up online. Yep.
Nice. Oh yeah, that's what I'm drinking.
So, where we left off was like page 25 of this
Did we get that
520
far?
page
It
book.
might have been the title page.
We basically got to the point where our Mistborn Vin is disguising herself as a noblewoman and attending balls in order to gain information and incite violence among the nobility.
Hmm.
This reminded me a lot. Have you ever read um, Forgotten Realms trilogy or Dris Stewart? You ever heard of them?
No.
It's a book series by R.A. Salvatore. You heard of R.A. Salvatore, right? He's in like every bookstore ever. He's always got books.
No. Never heard of
Anyway, he's basically an
him.
author for like conceptually the D&D realm. He writes
Okay.
these books. Very, very famous character, Dris Stewart, who's a dark elf. And the first like couple books is about like he's a dark elf who's like good. And that's very strange in the universe of D&D. They're supposed to be like chaotic evil. They worship Loth, the Spider Queen. I'm getting real nerdy with this shit. But anyway, the first couple books is like him growing up as this like lawful good drow in Menzoberranzan, which is their I think that's what it's called, Menzoberranzan. It's just their capital city and the Underdark because they live underground. And like essentially the way that it all works is you have these families that have armies and slaves and all these things, and they all live in this society, but every few years, and they all like have these conversations with other families and act very civil, but every few years there's a attempting to take over a house from another house to claim more territory or to gain status within the city. So incredibly similar to how the nobility in Mistborn operate because they're very civil up front, but there's always this like background idea of I'm gonna maybe take over your house eventually, or
Yeah.
trying to gain some merchant contract. Like the parallels are drastic, and that's exactly what I thought of when I read this book. It's
Yeah, I'm kind
very
of surprised.
interesting.
Like they kind of talked about like early on too, like how Ellen was like betrothed to this other girl.
Mm.
But like they don't really like talk about like the mixing of houses, which kind of surprises me because you would think that's like how, especially in like fantasy and stuff like that, like it's always okay, let's just marry and the family becomes together.
One thing that's really strange to me is later in the book, you come to find out that the person he was betrothed to is a Mistborn,
Yeah.
and that shocks Elend because like one of the things like conceptually, and I do want to get into this because I think this conversation was really interesting. But conceptually, like the mist things or the allomancers, people who can burn metal, come from this primarily from the nobility. It's genetic.
Yeah.
Supposedly, it's genetic. So the noble families will have mistings, and then incredibly rarely they'll have mistborn.
Yeah.
And they oftentimes try to hide the identities of the mistborn. And Elin was like, "Oh, I almost married a Mistborn. They were probably attempting to marry my family so they could then assassinate me once she has a child."
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, she
Jesus.
doesn't need to be a Mistborn to do that, dude.
Yeah. It's also weird how Ellen like doesn't have any powers. Maybe he just hasn't snapped yet because he gets had a pretty cush life.
Pretty cush, yeah. Pretty good.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of thoughts, but so she meets Ellen, and we were talking about this before the podcast starts. The Ellen storyline drags this book down like two notches, in my opinion.
Yeah, the love story just isn't good. It's just so cliche. Oh, you have the random girl who is apparently all powerful, but no one knows. She doesn't even know how powerful she is. And then you have the very rich guy who wants to incite change, but he is squandered by his super powerful, very authoritative father.
Yeah, it's straight up exactly how it works. And one of the things that really bothered me is there's like no conflict whatsoever between her plan to overthrow the entire final empire in which he lives as a noble birthright person to and his ideology of the world. That kind of like I think that hurts it quite a bit. Like there's never anytime there's like a weird ideological discussion between Vin and Elon, they're both like, yeah, we hate the Empire. Let's kill them all. I love the Ska. Why are we treating them this way? I'm like, I understand that like Eland is a more enlightened person, but like it's a more compelling story when he has to be convinced rather than he's just born with this level of enlightenment that no one else seems to be able to achieve. And she just happens to find him at a ball and fall in love with him.
Yeah, it's also like so weird too because he's like always asking about like the ska like oh like can they like think? Is that like a thing? Can they wipe their own asses? Like, huh, that's
Dude,
wild. I thought they were animals. Like, what is happening here?
all
Like
I'm
you
trying to
have
say is
ones that are like actual like tradesmen. What the fuck do you mean you don't know if they have any like possible thought? Like these motherfuckers are building you a boat. All right. You think they can't think?
all I'm saying is, not to get too weird, but I think Elon has a very specific fetish.
Yeah, I mean it's weird.
I think he loves to be the rich dude giving it to poor women. That's what I'm getting from Elon. Those are the vibes that I get.
Yeah.
And she keeps attending these balls and she's like becoming more and more of she likes it more. She's becoming more and more of a lady
Yeah.
or whatever it is. She's enjoying high society. Um,
Which I
which
mean, going from a street rat to like attending balls and probably like eating like nice meals. I could see that.
yes, but also at the same time, like one of the things I always kind of like, I don't know how I like Vin as a character because she truly doesn't really, in my opinion, have character. Her
Yes.
character is reflective of whatever she's doing at the time.
Yeah.
Like if she is sneaking around, she feels like she's the street rat. If she's at the ball, she feels like she can be a noblewoman. If she's training with Kessler, she feels like a Mistborn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, I just think that she plays so many different roles in order to in order to make this plan work. And you never really know which Vin you're getting. She's a completely like off the wall character all the time.
Yeah, it's weird. Like her entire like character progression is just her sometimes actually putting trust in people and believing like friends are actually a thing. Like, I mean, that's kind of what it boils down to, right? And that it's not really that compelling.
Yeah,
Now
and
that
she
you say it
also
out
but
loud, it's like that is really it.
and the thing that I struggle with a lot, and this is another thing we talked about, you have that dynamic where like she struggles so hard internally to trust people. But then and I think this is another reason why the love angle is so bad, is you get the coin flip where she meets Eland and she immediately is like, I'm in love with this guy and I trust him so much. And she's trying to literally overthrow everything he stands for. It makes no sense because she like literally what you're saying is like she has trouble trusting people, but she divulges for literally no reason so much valuable information that could put not only her but other people's lives at risk to this person just because he's funny and cute. Like that's literally like
Yeah, and later in the book too, she gets like some very vital information about House Venture, and she just keeps it to herself until essentially the end.
yeah, it's at war with itself. A person who struggles to trust, but who then throws all of her trust into this individual she has absolutely no reason to trust
Yeah, she just
whatsoever.
thinks he's a good guy.
Hmm.
It's weird. But yeah, so she starts going through all this, and then you have fucking like Kelsey, who's like actually going around doing shit. Like he is going through, he's like starting battles with the noble houses. He's fucking killing a bunch of just fucking noble people. Kelsey's a bad motherfucker.
So I have my thoughts about Kelsier.
Okay.
I I still don't understand. I get okay, so let's get through the story. Let's get through the story.
Okay.
There are some things about Kelsier that I'm like, what is this guy doing? This is very strange. But so she's playing the noble woman scenario. Well, so she's trying to incite House Rebellion. At the same time, they're building up an army. Now, the parts of the book that I really like is every once in a while, Vin will be essentially put onto like a side job where she has to work with other members of the crew,
Yeah.
and other members teach her specific things about the metal that they burn.
Yeah.
And that is always a fun time. I've always enjoyed that when she was
Yeah.
a
And it
breed.
actually like makes sense, right? Like what's better to learn from than someone that specif is specialized in that one thing.
Yeah. You don't want to be a master of none. And they are like very specialized. So she's trying to figure it out. Um, let's talk about probably like my favorite. There's two stories that I really like jammed with that I thought this was really interesting. The first story is at one point in time, uh, Kelsier and Vin, well, Vin follows Kelsier, and Kelsier essentially does a raid on the, I don't know, Citadel,
Yeah, essentially the grand man, what the fuck is his name?
the Lord
The
Ruler,
Supreme Leader or
Lord
whatever.
Ruler,
Yeah, that's it.
Supreme Leader. I am Darth Helmet. He does a raid on Darth Helmet.
But yeah, he's literally like, all right, I'm gonna go because in the past you find out that Kelsier had tried to do this before, and this is where he was captured, and the fucking goddamn the Supreme Leader
The Supreme Leader.
was like, "Oh, good job, Kelsey's wife. Good job. You are the reason you are captured."
Yeah, essentially, Kelsier's whole like dilemma morally or mentally is him and his wife historically tried to do this raid on the Citadel. The wife's name was Mare, and they got captured. And in the process of getting captured, after they got captured, the Lord Ruler, what a name, went up to his wife and was like, "Thank you for selling him out." Essentially, is what he
Yeah,
said. And so Kelsier always thought that he was like sold out by his wife, but then he still loved her. But and so they both went to the pits together, which is like jail.
yeah.
I'm just imagining the Parks and Rec. You overcook fish, straight to the pits. You undercook chicken, straight to the pits. And so the jail there is also, this is kind of crazy. We're jumping all over, but this is good.
Yeah,
The jail is also it's basically a cave.
the mine.
Well, it's I wouldn't even call it a mine because it what it is a fortress that people live in, and the guards force prisoners to go into this cave once a week with no light, no water or food, and they have to go searching through the dark to stick their hand in a rock formation to pull out a pebble. And if they pull out the pebble and make it back, then they get to live for another week. What the fuck is that? What is that?
It's an interesting system.
First off, definitely not the most efficient way to mine. What is it? Atrium?
Yeah, ATM.
Adium? Yeah. It's like this is like the most powerful metal. And all of the Mistborn need to use it in order to, slightly see the future. I'm like, what? Why would you mine it that way?
Yeah, stupid.
I wouldn't call it a because I wouldn't call it a mine. Like that's not it's not really mining. Like they would have an operation and they clearly do not. Like no one's and like well, the funnier part about this is actually very funny to me. You find out later that House Venture is in charge of the mining of Adium. And they have to like this actually cracks me up. Conceptually, like they have to bring in so much adium or the Lord Ruler will make them like a less powerful house. So the Lord Ruler has a lot of control over them because they have to bring in so much adium. And the funny part about this to me is like if you were House Venture, you'd be like, okay, well, let's give them a light so they don't like our house has got to stay in power, dude. We're gonna need more addy. I'm like, why is that the system? And, like if your house depends on it and you're in charge of the system, it doesn't take a genius to be like, we can do this a little bit better, I think, instead of
Yeah,
just
maybe feed
sitting
them.
instead of just sending a bunch of malnourished people into a dark cave with no lights until they poke around and find a little geode that they have to stick their arm into. What if I don't know, give them a flashlight, give them go in with a team, feed them.
Yeah. No, let's not do that.
Those two things just like completely conflict in my mind that like a whole house is in charge of mining this material and their entire livelihood depends on it. But for some reason, they also have to mine it in the most like dumbass way possible.
Yeah, it is really stupid, but hey, it is what it is.
So that's how Kelsier escaped. He escaped from the mine because his wife died. That's when he snapped. That's the whole backstory to Kelsier. So him and Vin try and do the same siege because Kelsier believes that
There's
the
something in that room.
supreme the supreme leader is hiding something in this room.
Yeah. And I mean, like, he really tries for Vin not to come, and then she's like, I'm gonna come anyway. So just let it happen. He's like, right, fine.
You
So
know,
they fucking
fuck
break
it.
in and they're just fucking everything up. Everybody that's in their way, just fucking dead. Like Kelsier sounds like a fucking machine. You just run in there, this fucking glass daggers, just everything in his way. Just fucking kills him.
I love it.
Then just like, God damn, this guy's good. Then they get to the room. And there's like 15 fucking Steel Inquisitors, and he's like,
There's three.
it felt like 15, okay?
I mean, three feels like 15.
And they're just like, fuck.
So Steel Inquisitors, I don't know if we've talked about these guys yet. They're essentially Allomancers. And can I ask, like, how do you imagine the Steel Inquisitors' faces? Because I have a certain way I imagine it.
They all like have like the same face to me. It's like a very just like
But how do the spikes work?
they're just like I'm just imagining like two of them just like pointing kind of like up like this. Like this is how I imagine
Oh,
it.
I imagine that they have like big spikes through their
Oh
heads
no, it's not through their head though.
that come out of their eyes.
But it's not through their heads.
So that's what I imagine.
They're just like they stop at the brain, I think, and then just go out. It's not all the way through.
But it's like a cone.
I don't think it's a cone.
They call it a spike. That's what I imagine a spike. It's like a cone.
I think they're just straight, just like too straight right out the eye. Except I have mine like angled up a little bit because that looks a little cooler than just like straight like this.
So you think like they don't have eyes though, right?
Well, the spikes are through their eyes.
This is so confusing me. So like, do they actually have eyeballs though?
I I don't think they do anymore.
I don't think they do either. I think there's a spike. I like to think mine conal. So I like to think that the metal like takes up their whole eye
I imagine like the lids are
socket.
just kind of like suctioned around.
Oh, so
Or maybe there's a gap.
you
Like maybe
imagine
they have
that's
to
a
like clean
face.
that shit out so it doesn't get infected. I don't know.
So anyway, they got spikes in their head. I don't fucking know. It looks weird, I can promise you that.
Guaranteed.
And these guys are apparently like badasses.
Well, they're like, when they become Steel Inquisitors, they all become Mistborn as well, and they're like super fucking strong.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I thought that you had, well, that makes sense.
Yep.
Yes. Yep, that makes sense. So you can, what's strange, that is really weird, is like Steel Inquisitors were people that became Mistborn. So the process of becoming a Steel Inquisitor creates a Mistborn. So it's not exclusively genetic.
Yeah, I mean
However,
the fucking like Supreme Leader, god damn it.
Supreme Leader,
He just the whole like lore behind like
yeah,
him and the process
yep,
kind of doesn't make any sense. I maybe
I
that
agree.
gets revealed later
I
because there's
agree.
like the steel there's a whole steel ministry.
Yeah.
So like maybe this is just a fucking religious thing. I don't fucking know.
So, but in the what we don't know, and let's go, man, we're jumping. We're jumping. We'll get to the Steel Inquisitor, Pete. So they invade this like place and they find this basically it's like a yurt, but there's
What?
three a yurt, like a tent. So they go into a room and there's like a yurt in the middle of the room.
I'm pretty sure there's a whole ass fucking like chapel.
But I don't think it is. From what the way that they described it, it's very primitive because of who's actually in there and what he actually is. It's like that person's actual home from his like civilization. It's like I would imagine them very similar to like, and when I'm talking about the talisman, right?
Yeah,
I imagine them very similar to like nomadic people.
sure,
They're pack herders.
sure. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's been like a month since I've read this book.
Well, that's your problem, dude. So anyway, the Mistborn or the Inquisitors, Kelsier is able to distract one. Two of them try to beat the shit out of Vin, but Vin is escaping and she finds this book. And then uh, the Talisman dude, what's his name? Says.
Yeah, says it.
He shows up and saves her life, and Kelsier makes it back. Oh, they're all beaten to shit.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, fucking like Vid like almost died. She like
hmm
fucking impaled or something.
hmm Stabbed in the side or something
Yeah,
crazy
something
like
like
that.
that.
So the interesting part about this is like they're like Vin's recovering, they're still doing the recruiting, but Sazed is essentially transcribing this this logbook because it's written in a different language.
Yeah.
And did you like in the audiobooks, as you audiobook this, right? Before each chapter, was there like an excerpt?
Yes. It's like that in the next book too.
Yeah, so like basically this log, what's super cool, what the way I do enjoy how Sanderson did this. Before each chapter is actually an excerpt of this logbook. And for the first like 20 chapters, I'm like, what the fuck is are these like excerpts? Like I don't understand them at
Yeah,
all.
this is why like I thought like Sazed might have been like
The
the
narrator.
narrator because it was in his voice. Like the voice actor was doing his voice for the excerpts.
Oh, but he was the interpreter
Yeah.
of the logbook. And so this logbook details like the Lord Ruler's supposedly a historical journey to defeat the deepness.
Yep. The deepness.
What the fuck that is? I mean, the names,
I'm almost halfway through the second book and we still don't know what the deepness is.
whatever the fuck the deepness is, these names are incredible. That part is really interesting because
Yeah,
that's
it's actually
like,
my favorite part of the book, I think, is the logbook.
Yeah, it's like figuring out like what, like the history behind this, the mystery behind allomancy, how to defeat the Lord Ruler, what the Lord Ruler is, what the deepness is, all these things.
What the fuck is the Ascension?
Yeah, what is the ascension? Why was it needed? What the fuck is going on?
Yeah,
You have literally no idea as the reader throughout any of
still don't
this.
have any idea.
Yeah.
The next book is called The Well of Ascension. I still don't know where the well even is, what the Ascension is.
Or what the world does.
Yeah. Is it is it an actual well? Is it just water? Are you just drinking water and you're like, holy shit, I'm powerful now?
Wow.
Maybe that's how you make Still Inquisitors. You drink some water and you fucking stab them in the eyes.
Or through the back of the head.
All right.
That was my
Chug, chug,
thought.
chug, jaw.
So I
Got any
remember
more
like
sticks?
reading
Stick
it.
them in.
I remember reading it and I was like, "Ah, that doesn't make sense. They definitely would be dead
Well, yeah, I mean, even like every time they mention, they're like, how the fuck are they alive?
all the time. Yeah. So that's a really interesting part. Like this like logbook, and it talks about like essentially how the Lord Ruler, which I'll put in quotes, this was before, we think it's before allomancy even existed. The Lord,
Don't you ever fucking
sorry,
sleep again.
the Lord Ruler was like supposed to be this like chosen one to defeat the deepness. And he has to make it to this well. And to help him out, he hires these terracemen. And one of the terracemen that are what's it called? Ferromancy,
Yeah,
which is what
fair.
we talked about in the other podcast, where you
Yep.
can like put a part of your whatever energy, life force,
Yeah,
whatever it
it's
is into
weird. It's
certain.
like you can do like anything. It's like strength, speed, weight.
Yeah,
Like it gets even like weirder in the second book. It's like says it just like does a bunch of stuff, but like he'll like literally just like remove his weight and just like jump down into a cliff and just like kind of float down like a fucking leaf. It's like what is happening?
interesting.
Yeah.
So like that's the a whole different art, but that existed at this time the logbook's being written. So he has to hire this group of people to like help him get to this well. And what I understood was like this group of people, the talismans, they're the ones that had the prophecy about this guy being the chosen one to defeat the deepness.
Yep.
But then there's like some dude that he hired who I can't remember the name of,
I can't
and
either.
he was the leader of this group that he hired, and he just like hated this dude.
I almost said Rorschach, but that's obviously not the right name, but
Rashak, that sounds right.
it's
Rashak,
close to Rorschach.
pretty close, pretty good. But yeah, he just hated whoever this dude was, the Lord Ruler previously, and he was like, I think we're dominant because we have powers and you don't, so we should just dominate you, is what he said.
Essentially.
And that's what we get from the book. And the book literally cuts off when the Lord Ruler's like, all right, I'm about to head to the well.
Yeah,
Peace.
there's like this whole thing where it's like if I take the power for myself, like I will become a monster. But if I take it and get rid of the deepness, like I will save the world type of thing. Some big
Yeah.
decision that you never know what the decision ends up being.
So that's a really interesting part. My second favorite part in the story is when Ham Hammond, the pewter burner, is sent to like be in charge of the army.
Hmm.
And then Kelsier basically goes to check up on him. We get like two chapters of Kelsier checking up on Hammond and the army because they're bringing in like thousands of people into this cave system. They're really big on caves in this book.
Yep.
And Hammond, when he sees Kelsier, has this like crazy interesting conversation, in my opinion. This is like probably one of my favorite parts of the book because Hammond, he's a thug, but he's also the philosophical guy in the group, and I
Yeah,
think he's probably my favorite character,
he's mine too.
actually.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And he's talking to Kels here, and he's like, "Look, like, I want to talk to you about something deep that I've been thinking about." And of course, Kelsey was like, "Oh, of course, it's Hammond. Talk about some deep shit." Hammond's
He's
like,
he's the Connor of our group.
"Yeah, 100%." And Hammond's like, "What if we aren't really supposed to overthrow the nobility and Lord Ruler? Maybe they really are supposed to rule over us."
Yeah, because he talks
And
about like allomancy and
yeah,
like it's like none of these people have allomancy. Obviously, if you're an allomancer, you're just better.
if you're a misting, it's because one of your parents was an Allomancer,
Yeah, they
and
were a
one of your
nobleman.
parents was nobility. And he just kind of talked about like this concept of like in their world, there is a weird line of genetic supremacy because they literally have magical powers and it's passed down genetically, which is very crazy as a concept. And I love this is like one of my favorite conversations in the book and maybe in a lot of books. I just really like how and like if there's mages or anything in the world, a lot of authors don't address this. But Sanderson does, and it's like, wait a minute, is there like a weird genetic supremacy thing, and should we be subservient kind of thing?
Yeah.
I just absolutely thought that was interesting, and at the time, it raised like a huge flag in my mind because I'm like, wait a minute, where does allomancy come from? Why is it genetic, and why do these people have it? And in my thought process, I was thinking, well, maybe the allomancers, and I do think this is what happened, just did fall to this idea of we're supreme and eventually became noblemen after generations and generations.
Well, it kind of talks about that like the noblemen are the ones that the supreme leader they like joined him. And he was like, "All right, you guys can stay around. Everyone else fucking trash."
But that doesn't make that much sense
I agree, it doesn't.
because
Although he can also make fucking still inquisitors who become Mistborn. So
that's also weird. He can create allomancy people. It doesn't make sense because it doesn't like it doesn't seem like, and we don't know. It doesn't seem like the Lord Ruler like granted allomancy conceptually.
yeah,
Maybe he did.
yeah, or maybe I mean maybe it's a thing with the fucking miss.
Yeah, I don't know. Because you would imagine like there'd be allomancers, and it doesn't make a lot of sense that all of them would just side with the Lord Ruler. But maybe there's something deeper about it. And th these questions and the
So
things we were just
this just popped in my fucking head. So it talks about how, like the miss like really react with like the Mistborn and shit. We know the scholar like taught the mists are fucking scary, don't go out there. The noblemen don't care as much. So maybe it's just like the process of being in and around the mist just kind of like soaks into you and you fucking produce little mist babies.
yeah, I mean I've got some thoughts. Let's get to the juicy stuff. And we'll talk about like what I think Sanderson has done here what he wrote incredibly well. And this is what I'm gonna say because I actually hated hearing about this when I did like research about this book where everyone was like the coolest part about it is the hard magic system. And man, Sanderson has all these rules. I'm like, that doesn't actually seem interesting to me. I don't like the concept of a hard magic system. But what Sanderson actually did, like I think the subtle tones behind that is it's not just that the hard magic system is really cool, it's that it's mysterious and it drives the story. The
Yeah.
things I'm interested in is why the hard magic system is the way it is. And like everything else in the book is just kind of supplemental, in my opinion. And I'm just like really interested in this like deep lore about the universe. So he's like world building through a hard magic system, is what he's doing.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of additional pieces. She continues to flirt with Eland. Um, it, they're citing house wars. Some houses are falling, some houses are not. and that she comes to find out that the Elon's family, the Ventures, are in charge of the Adium mining.
Yep.
And then a big thing that occurs is the essentially people are starting to worship Kelsier as a person because he's the survivor of the pits. He does a lot of crazy stuff at night. He's just inciting people, and he kind of becomes like a,
I got
well, before he becomes
a
a god,
profit, maybe.
he becomes a bit of a prophet. Yeah, and a lot of the people in the crew are not liking this. And then the army, after Hammond leaves, they, under this, like, I would have, like, almost like a religious fervor, just decide that they're going to try and attack the nobility now instead of wait. And it results in almost all of them dying. It almost throws away their entire plan. But Kelsier convinces them to stick to it, and that they don't necessarily need the army because the army's purpose was to destroy the garrison. The garrison left to go and
Yeah.
destroy their army for like months. So
Yeah.
they're like, oh, perfect. Problem solved.
Yeah. And then he has like a whole big like speech to them too about it. He's like, look, they're all gone. Do you guys want to be in or do you want to be out? But like everything else is still in place.
Yeah, he makes it very clear after this because everyone was pretty much going to give up. And Kelsier's like, look, um, like Breeze was like, oh, you never wanted us to get rich. And Kelsier's like, nope, this is not about getting rich. Sorry if you felt that way. I know that I told you that's the way it was, but that's not it. And I lied to you.
Yeah,
It's
essentially.
about overthrowing the government. And they were like, okay, fair enough. We like doing that.
Fine. You sexy bitch. We'll do whatever you want.
Exactly. Um, so they also get, this is another important piece of tidbit here, is they also get Marsh, which is Kelsier's brother, into the, not the Steel Ministry, into the Inquisitors.
Yeah. He became an
No.
obligator.
Yes, he becomes an obligator. So they sneak him in to get more information about how to destroy the Steel Ministry, how to destroy the Inquisitors and the obligators and all that stuff. But throughout this process, he actually becomes very weary that they're onto him, and he goes to reveal some information to Kelsier, and Kelsier finds his body.
That's a
Um,
fucking like just blood fucking everywhere.
yes. So Kelsier's brother dies. And that,
Kelsier snaps.
yeah, he goes kind of crazy. He goes and destroys the Adium.
The whole fucking mine, apparently, which is the dumbest fucking thing ever. If you are an
Definitely like,
Elemancer, you blow up the ATM?
yeah, like if you
Like the
try to like
geodes?
pull out the Adium, this whole thing was so silly to me. I thought this was so dumb. He like basically went to the middle of the mountain and just pulled all the geodes.
Yeah, there's
I'm like, okay. And he's like, yeah, that's why he had to bring humans in to mine them. I'm like, first off, he never brought humans in to mine them. Let's be very clear about what they're doing in there. If he really wanted the adium, he could have had it like a long time ago. So he destroyed like all the adium because it apparently only grows in this one mine, which is
yeah, it
another
takes like
mystery.
10 years for the geo deposit to make another one or something.
Yeah, real weird. So essentially, after that, Vin goes to
Party.
another ball, but shit's getting real intense, and no one's talking to her. And Elon just is like, listen, I know that you're not who you say you are. He has no idea that she's Ska, no idea that she's Mistborn. He thinks that she's a house spy.
Yeah.
He basically disowns her. But then Vin uncovers a plot that other houses are going to be assassinating him that night using Mistborn. And it turns out it's his ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
So she goes and then kills
Yep.
pretty much.
For sure fucking does.
She kills them, prevents the assassination of Elon. It ignites a massive house war, though, because no one really knows exactly what's going on. They just saw Mistborn were at play, and therefore they thought there were that Mistborn are assassins essentially in their
Yep.
society.
And Daddy Adventure's like, damn it. You didn't kill my son, you dumb bitch.
Yeah, he actually really wants his son to die.
Yeah, it's fucking weird. But
So
hey, whatever, I guess.
yeah, essentially, I'm trying to think when they discover Marsh. So that happens right before they discover Marsh. They discover Marsh, like all the houses are rioting. They discover Marsh's body, which is Kelsier's brother. And they're like, fuck, they probably interrogated him. They know everything. Everybody get out of town. We're gonna go into hiding.
Yeah.
That's when Kelsier blows up the mines. And then when they come back, they're doing more assassinate or not assassinations, executions in the square. And at this point in time, I'm like 90% of the way through the book, and I'm like, where is this book
Yeah.
going? Like, are we about to get like an overthrow of the government? And essentially, the Inquisitors found out about Lord Venture that being a fake Lord Venture, and they got
Renew.
him and a whole bunch of
Venture was
other.
normal.
Oh, sorry, yeah, who is it?
Lord Renew.
Yeah, who's like their whole alibi.
Yep.
And a whole bunch of other people that were part of the plot, and they were going to execute them. But Kelsier and Hammond and Breeze and everybody basically goes and fights and tries to free these people. And Kelsier in the process kills the Steel Inquisitor.
Yeah, it's been the same fucking one that's been like sniffing out then this whole time, which has been a whole weird thing.
And we
I
find
still
out
don't
why.
understand this process at all. Like, how do they have a trail?
I don't know either. That's another
It
thing
doesn't
that
make
very
any
confused me.
sense.
This, like in particular with Vin, like how they
Yeah.
even know the information.
Yeah, I still don't understand. Like, it's literally like he's like a dog sniffing, is how I
Yeah.
imagine the whole thing. I was like, what is happening?
Yep. So Kelsier kills this Inquisitor, but then the Supreme Leader appears and just fucking gets stabbed multiple times.
Yep.
Doesn't even bother with it.
They just like walking impaled by fucking like spears.
Yeah. And I don't understand that either.
Immortal.
I don't get that. We'll talk about that in a
I
second.
agree. It doesn't really make sense, especially because it's talking about like beheadings and stuff like this. And like being like burned alive. Like he's
Yeah.
apparently gone through all the gambit of ways to die.
Doesn't make any sense.
But yeah,
But
like him and Kelsier are going at it, kind of. He just like walks up to Kelsier and was like, I thought I already killed you. And Kelsier's like, you can't kill me, I'm Hope.
I'm
He's like,
hoping.
fucking kills him.
That's actually a really funny way to look at it. I'd love just that like one clip right there. You can't kill me, I'm Hope. Just backslaps him to death. So yeah, Kelsier dies. And the whole band's about to break up. Then you go and find out that the Ska have basically elevated from the status from a prophet to a martyr to a god.
Yep.
And a
There's a
lot
whole
of this
religion.
you come to find out because Rain, what's his name?
Renew.
Renew, Lord Renew. We knew from the beginning wasn't Lord Renew,
Yeah.
but then we come to find out that he's actually this species that can eat the bones of the dead people and become them.
Yep.
Cool. So he
Yep.
eats the bones of Kelsier, becomes Kelsier, and then visits these
He
Ska
like
the
jumps
night.
in houses like I'm alive,
I
motherfuckers, and bounces
fucking knew
out.
it. Rebel, rebel. Ska, 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 ska.
I seen the Lord has come to my home. Everyone's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And Renew's like,
You come to find out that this whole thing was like 100% planned by Kelsier.
yep.
He
He
basically
said
wanted to
no.
create
Like
a
these are
ska
all the
religion.
things you need to do step by step. Do not deviate, you dumbasses. You're welcome.
Ugh, give me a second. I just had a whole beer explode.
Sorry, we'll keep going. I'll keep going. We're definitely over an hour at this point. So the Scots start rebelling, and House Venture is also has left. Ellen is like, "Well, I'm gonna stay because I'm of my people," or some dumb shit. And his dad's like, yes, yes, that's a good idea. He'll totally die. This is great." And while that's happening, then it's like, okay, well, everyone here has a job. Ham is supposed to like start gathering the army. I don't remember what the other guys were doing. All helping with the armies, obviously. But Vin's like, okay, I'm gonna go break into that fucking room. Something is in that room. Kelsier swears it was. He had given her the 12th medal, 13th medal,
11th,
11th medal. There might be 30 medals. I don't know.
4, 8. Yeah, it's
Either way,
11th. It's 11th.
he had left her the medal, so she took it. She took some, ran off to the citadel, breaks into the room, and there's just an old ass motherfucker standing there. And she's like, "What the fuck?" And then she gets jumped by fucking
Well, you find
Wizard.
out that that's the Lord Ruler,
Yes.
which
Which,
is,
as soon as I saw this, once I get to this scene, I knew exactly what he was.
yeah, the old guy.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. But this part, like pretty much from here on out, the rest of the story is like very,
Bam, bam, bam.
very heavily involved in the magic system,
Yeah.
and it gets really confusing.
Yeah.
So Van like burns this 11th metal and sees like two versions of the Lord Ruler, which is like the opposite of what happens when you burn gold, where you see like two versions of yourself, like one in the future, one in the past, potentially. And so she's really confused, gets beaten up by Steel Inquisitors, gets thrown in jail. Says gets arrested, turns into the Hulk, and frees her.
Yeah. Ellen
Then,
shows up too, and he's like, "I've come to save you." And she's like, "I'm a Mistborn," and fucking kills everyone else. He's like, "Oh wow, you're so strong."
damn, I've got another fetish unlocked.
And then she goes and fights the Lord Ruler.
Yeah, and it's real funny in my opinion. 'Cause she's like, I know how to beat him. She gets in,
Your
burns the
name's
11th
Rorschach.
medal, tries to kill her, tries to kill his like past self, and she just runs through him. And she goes, "Fuck,
Ah,
that didn't
fuck.
work." Like she like walks away from Elon so confident, she's like, I know how to kill him.
And
And it's just like
Rorschach, I don't
completely.
remember what his fucking name is. It's just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like she calls out his name, and he's like, "Yeah, that's me."
So you well first you come to find out that Marsh is alive and he got turned into an Inquisitor,
Well, yeah, he saves her life during this.
saves her life, kills another Inquisitor. It turns out he killed all the Inquisitors in the city.
Yeah, all you have to do is just remove a stick from their back.
I don't know what that was about.
Like, does it have to be the one in the back? Like, could they like pull out an eye one? Apparently, there's 15 of them. Like, could they pull out any, or does it have to be the one in the back?
It's got
Also,
to be
how
the
do you not notice the big old thing sticking out of their back?
it's got to be the one in the back
How do you like miss that?
because in order for it to work, all of them have to be connected, and the one in the back
Either way,
connects.
there's like 15 of them. They only ever talk about the two in the eyes.
There's 11.
Whatever. Either way, they only ever talk about the two stick. Like, what the fuck are they wearing that you can't tell that there's more?
I don't know how much the sticks stick out of their back, but yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean it's
I
huge.
imagining like three
Huge.
feet.
3 feet.
Oh, 3
You
feet's
think
a
this
lot.
dude's looking
Maybe a
around with
foot.
3 feet sticks coming out of his head?
Maybe only a foot.
I'm thinking like a few inches. Like that's what
Hmm,
I'm thinking.
that seems weak.
I mean, I've got a steel beam coming out of my eyes, man. I don't even need elements. I just fucking turn my head. I knock some people out.
But yeah, that happens, and he fucking fights both of them, beats the shit out of both of them. And then
We get
she's
a
like, "Wait a
moment.
minute, I am super powerful now. There's a mist in here, and I can use the power of the mist, and I can pull on your
Well,
bracelets."
well, wait a minute. Let's back up a second. So the Lord Ruler's like pissed, so pissed, and he says something. He's like, "How you? I'm dominant." And there's this like very, very reminiscent to Batman versus Superman moment where
What'd you
she,
say, Martha?
yeah, she goes, she goes, "Wait a minute, I know you. You're what's his face, the Terryman from the book log,
I keep saying Rorschach, but I know that's not
Rorschach.
it.
You're Rorschach." And he goes, "Rorschach, how did you know? Ah, that's just like weakness." Like, I don't know, dude. Like, who gives a shit? Your name might have been Bob. Like, you call yourself the supreme leader. I mean, everyone knew you weren't born with that name. Anyway, she starts like piecing a bunch of shit together, and this is when stuff gets real weird.
Yeah.
Essentially, the supreme leader was originally a pharomancer who can put things into metal and then use them later, but he's also an allomancer. So what you find out he was doing was using pharomancy to store some of his youth, but then allomancy to burn it, which makes it more powerful, meaning he essentially could live forever.
Yep.
How any of this explains that he can take a spear through the chest is beyond me. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't know.
The way Vin defeated him was he had two nipple rings that she pulled out, and that made him turn into an old man. And the only thing I'm lying about with this story is the location of the rings. They were
Yeah, they're
essentially
bracelets.
on his arms, but it would have been way better if they were on his
That'd
nipples.
been fucking funnier.
Pulls the nipple rings out. And
Yeah,
then
that's
he does like the whole what's the I feel like there's like a movie or something with this where the person just like turns old really fast and then dies.
yeah, but also leaves you with the I was actually protecting you.
You have no idea what you've just done. Ah.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. So how many of our questions got answered? A few in very strange ways. The the magic system at the end, it got like really weird.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
and
I
like it didn't apparently the miss help Mistborns. I don't know.
Yeah, oh yeah, she was able to use the mist to pull off his nipple rings.
Yep. I don't even know what that means.
They're on his nipples.
No, I understand what nipple rings mean. I don't understand the power, the mist stuff. Like
The
I'm
power
halfway
of the
through the
mist.
second book, and like she's like, I have not been able to do that again. I'm like,
I have no idea what
okay,
happened there. I think it only works on nipple rings.
as it should.
The mist is real freaky.
I've watched enough porn. What about them like them clit piercings?
We all
Or stuff
know
freak me out.
the reason the mist did that because that was tentacle mist. Yeah, tentacles are into some weird shit.
That they are
So anyway, Elend ends up as king, which is like whatever.
pretty much.
Um, and she does this thing at the end where she's like, I don't know if I want to be with him. And she's like, oh, wait a minute. I got told by the Steel Inquisitors that the brother who beat the shit out of me constantly didn't tell the Steel Inquisitors about me, and therefore
I love him.
I love him.
Yeah,
Also, let's go back to some of the previous questions we had. Why did they know that Vin was that dude's daughter?
you can sniff her. I have no fucking idea.
Yeah, because they literally told her that Reen did not say anything.
Yeah, and like it's not like that dude also like it's not like he was a Mistborn.
Yeah. Oh, at least we don't know. Yeah, as far as we know.
Yeah, I have no idea. Like I don't even know if he even had Allomancy.
Yeah, no idea.
So really weird. I don't the whole thing with like her father, whatever.
We didn't really
Like it
touch
makes
on
no
that.
sense like why she's so fucking powerful. Like I imagined that like she's like part like talisman or whatever, and it has like a ferromancer and an allomancer, but I don't even know if that's even a thing anymore.
Yeah.
As I'm
Like you
gonna
thought
come,
she was like Lord Ruler 2.0.
yeah, but I don't think so. But maybe I
Yeah,
don't
you
know.
come to find out like the Lord Ruler like cut off all the talisman's balls because they didn't want them to reproduce to potentially have a Pyromancer Allomancer duo, which has all kinds of plot logic that doesn't make sense. It's like they're women.
Yeah,
Did they like I don't know. Did they do things did they just make the women to where they can't reproduce either? So like no one could reproduce of that entire race?
I don't. It sounds like they're all like there's like breeding farms of them, but also why? If you want to get rid of them,
I also think it's weird that a person who was a Pharaohmancer decided that of the two genes, he was going to prevent the Pharaohmancers from breeding. Maybe he thought they were stronger.
I mean, it's probably part like a thing with their religion, I would imagine, but he also made sure the religion went away. So I don't know.
Yeah, like he destroyed his entire culture
Yeah,
and civilization, who he thought was dominant prior to the well.
yeah.
I don't know.
Oh yeah. So I guess we didn't even talk about that. The terrorist killed the guy in the logbook who was supposed to be the child of promise or whatever.
Yeah, like the Lord Ruler in the logbook was not the actual Lord Ruler. It was the
Yep.
terroristman that was like helping him get there.
Yep.
And that's why it's like, oh, you're a Ferromancer and your name is
Rorschach.
Rorschach.
It's definitely not Rorschach. That's
It's
fucking
Rorschach.
Watchmen.
So, yeah, all in all, the book was good at times, bad at other times. I feel like it was written like a Netflix show. Like he wrote one book in a way that a Netflix series would write one season, to where one season wrapped it up just in case it didn't get renewed. You
Yeah.
get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot. Like at the end of the book, it's like, okay, like
Yeah.
everyone's happy.
Yeah. It was like literally like I think the only I don't understand how there's five more books
Yeah,
because like you can go into the deep, I guess, right? Like I'm
the
assuming
deepness.
I'm halfway through the second book and I still am not entirely sure what the point of this is. I imagine the deepness is the big bad, but I also imagine that the deepness being just like a random fucking character. I don't know, I'm just gonna be like, okay.
There's like mystery behind what the Lord Ruler did at the well with the deepness. It's very sexual, more than likely. I mean, he literally came out with nipple rings that made him live forever. And there's also mystery behind like how what the Lord Ruler's doing supposedly to like keep it alive. But then like Say's at the end is like the logbook could have also just been fictional and just a conflict but emotionally between a person and their like inside emotionally. And I'm like, Sanderson literally wrote this to wrap up in a book just in case.
Yeah.
And it makes me like not really care too much about the second book when I go into it.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see what your thoughts are in the second book.
I
It
give this whole thing a
feels like so far
6.5.
it's like the same.
Okay.
Like I'm not like impressed, but I'm not like this is the worst shit. Like I like It's better than probably most of the Horus Heresy.
Oh my gosh, I've got so much to talk about with that, by the way.
Let's talk
We'll
about
get
that
to it.
next because we're at like an hour and
Yeah,
20.
we'll get to that next week for sure.
All right, cool. As always, you guys hit us up on Discord. Find that pin to our Twitter at Heresy Lodge. Email us at theheresylodge@gmail.com. Check us out on YouTube at the Heresy Lodge. Check out our merch. Buy yourself something nice for the holidays. They are coming up. Nothing's better than drinking out of a Heresy Lodge pint glass. Have a good one, guys.